हरि ओम। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्रुति स्मृति पुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयम् नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतो वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम। We are trying to study the background of minimum essential knowledge required to undertake the study of Brahma Sutra. In other words, we are trying to qualify ourselves for the word Atha of the first shloka of Brahma Sutra. And in connection with that, we try to see how the search for ultimate reality, the search for ultimate truth, the search for ultimate substance, the search for ultimate substratum is the ultimate goal of all the branches of philosophy, may it be Eastern, may it be Western. A cursory glance around in this universe tells us one concrete truth. One, that everything in this world is a flux. Everything is transient. Everything is changing. Nothing appears to be stationary. In fact, change is the name of the world. And with that, a thing comes to the mind that if everything is evolving, everything is changing, everything is getting destroyed, everything is getting created, what is permanent? Nothing that undergoes a change is qualified unless there is an opposite existing. An absolute fundamental logic tells us that if I say A is existing, there has to be a B and there has to be a non-existence. Otherwise, existence doesn't get qualified. If I say a man, the very fact that I call a person a man, there has to be an animal. Dvandva, twinness, qualification by another aspect of what is being qualified becomes coherent and inherent, both. So when we say day, there has to be a light. When I say it is, there has to be it is not. A Sufi beautifully explains this. He says, Nafi asfad da pani miliya. Nafi asfad. Hona na hona. To be and not to be. So a changing world is always qualified by comparative things of two, which we call dvandva, and that is why we call Lord Vishnu or Krishna as dvandva atitam. He is atit, he is beyond the dvandva. That means he is advitiya. Why there is a need of believing in advitiya? Because if everything is advitiya, everything is a changing, there has to be a permanent thing. A change is qualified by permanency as an antonym. Every day the cells are getting destroyed in the body, but the body is permanent in relation to that dying cell in relation. But then the body dies. When the body dies, there has to be some permanency, and the permanency is ascribed to the soul. If this is the case, then came the question of deciding, is there a permanent thing? If it is there, what is the nature of that thing? The metaphysical aspect or the sad vastu mimamsa aspect of that reality. Call it by any name. Some can call it as Purush. Advaita calls it as Brahma. A Vaishnavite calls it as Vishnu. A Krishna Bhakta may call it as Krishna. You may name it by any name, but the presumption that there is a permanent thing which is the reality and everything else is impermanent, this becomes the first logical postulate. The dichotomy between something that doesn't change and something that always changes is the first evolution of the thought. And the moment you agree that there is a thing that is permanent called Brahman or any name, and there is something which is constantly changing, immediately the question comes, what is the relation between the two? How a changing thing is related to something which never changes. The most naughty, Knotty, the most naughty problem in philosophy is how to reconcile unchanging with ever-changing. It's not a small problem. It's a difficult problem. Very difficult to handle. Because if you try to bring these two together, either that which is permanent becomes subject to change, or that which is changing tries to become permanent. That is why some of the thinkers who said if everything is changing, then it is impermanent, it is not true. If it is not true, then why it is present? Then some people say, no, it is not present. You feel it is present. It is apparent. The philosophical dissection starts with all kinds of philosophical dissections, came out different theories. different siddhantas leading to different branches of philosophy. Sometimes a question may come to our mind that why dissect so much in the philosophy? Why find out this relation between changing and unchanging, the relation between Brahma and the Jiva, Brahma and the Chetan and Achetan, both Jada, 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 Jiva, Jiva, Ishvara, Ishvara, Brahma. All this, why do we do this? We must remember, Acharya Shankaracharya has emphasized time and again that thinking alone can lead us to the ultimate state. It is the vichar. Think of our daily life. We are yet to earn the money, we are yet to build the bungalow, we are yet to do anything, but we constantly think about it and find out a solution for that. Where to invest, how much to invest, when for actual investment and the returns is much far away after the thinking. But it is the thinking that leads to the result. As a crude analogy then, a thinking alone, a man who is thinking, a person whose ability to think is sharp and penetrating, can dissect the knotty problem of philosophy and then push himself into the work required for the realization called sadhana. According to Acharya, no sadhana is possible without thinking. Even the Bhakti Sampradaya says, yes, you think about how the world is, how that is, how that is. We only think about Krishna, nothing else. But the fact remains, he thinks about Krishna. We think about the problems and their solution. Both places, what is common is thinking, thinking, and thinking, which is called mananam or the contemplation. And you contemplate, provided you have a template. And the template comes from Shravana, hearing. That is why the study that we are doing now. Coming back to the question of two important aspects. One, what is the ultimate reality? By now we all know in Bharatiya Tattvajnana, we saw the darshanas and the Advaita or the Uttar Mimamsa. All of them believe in that ultimate reality which is called Brahma. Now comes the question, once it is postulated that Brahman is the ultimate reality, everything other than the Brahman is false, mithya. False is not the right word, but there's no word for mithya in English. So Sat is Brahman, mithya is a Jagat. Now the question comes, how do we reconcile something which is Satya with something which is mithya? And this problem was the problem of arguments amongst the stalwarts of realized souls who looked at this problem in different manner. Some of them said, who says that this is mithya? It is not mithya, it is real. The Jagat is also real. The Jiva is also real. The Brahman is also real. Then there was Shankaracharya who said, no, Jagat is not real. Jiva is not real. They are all mithya. Only Brahman is real. Then somebody came and said, no, Brahman is real, no doubt about it. Jagat and Jiva are real till a certain extent. After that, they become unreal. Then came another school of thought which said that, look, they are real and they are different. Brahman can never be same as a Jiva and Jagat. They are completely different. Others said no, they appear different, but they are one. That's how the philosophical speculations based on every individual's acharya's realization, the differences started. But the biggest problem that the philosophy faces here is a living thing and a non-living thing, they are separate from each other like day and night. Reconciling day with night is next to impossible, because when day is related to night, night will not be any more night. A living thing is when related to non-living thing, a non-living thing will become a living thing. When Brahman is related to the Jagat, which is supposed to be mithya or inert or jada or achetan, and there is a chetan or the consciousness which is Brahman, how can these two, which are diametrically, distinctively opposite, are still related to each other? Because Brahman is a substratum which sustains the change. That which sustains the change, how it is related to the change? If the yogurt is related to the milk, then there is a vikar in the milk which has become the yogurt now. There is a parinam. Parinam presupposes change in the state of milk and it becomes curd or yogurt. So change is understandable only when the change happens in the original substance. But Brahman is Nishkriya, Nirakara, Shuddha, Nitya Brahman. There is no Vikara Sambhava. There is no change possible at all in Brahman. Why? Moment you say it changes as a parinami into this, then it becomes parinami. And when something which is afflicted by vikar cannot be permanent, because that is what our observation is. And that is where precisely Shankaracharya came out with his theory, which was completely different than emphasized by others so far. Although it was not his original theory, it came earlier even from his own Paratpara Guru, Gaudapada Maharaj. He himself had borrowed it earlier from, because the traces of Mayavad are found even in Veda. But no one in the lineage of great teachers had ever explained it so beautifully the way Shankaracharya did. So Shankaracharya attempted to sort out this issue, the knotty problem between the living and the non-living, or the relation between the Jagat, Jiva on one side and Brahman on the other side, by introducing the concept of what he called as Maya Vada Siddhanta. It is a highly intellectual attempt to reconcile Chetan Brahma with Achetana Jagat. It is an attempt to prove that Brahman is the one which is responsible for everything that we see, yet it is not responsible, it doesn't undergo any change, it remains avikari. Although pluralistic world, multiplicity, diversity, plurality is the nature of the world, the Brahma is advitiya, unitary in nature. It is the concept of unmoved mover of Aristotle. He was also attempting to find out unmoved mover, causeless cause. Acharya is going to describe what Maya is in the second adhyaya of Brahma Sutra, where we will be seeing it in detail. For which he proceeds with Adhyasa Bhasya, before entering into Brahma Sutra. It's a very systematic arrangement of Shankaracharya in his Bhasya for Brahma Sutra that he slowly but steadily tackles the issue. While tackling the issue of this naughty relation, he one by one starts refuting other thinkers or other philosophical branches. All that Shankaracharya said about Maya is, if you want to make a statement about Maya and give a full stop to it, it is not that easy. In other words, it is not describable. Now, the commonest objection to this is something that cannot be described, how you can believe in it? Acharya is not saying that it is indescribable in the sense that there is nothing known about it. Acharya says she is known by her function. She is not known by her nature. Maya is karyanumeyi. When she works, you come to know the world. Till the time the world is existing, you will come to know about Maya. But when the world is not existing, she is also not there. So Maya is karyanumeyi. And what is it? One of the most third-rate word used in English for Maya is illusion. Illusion gives a completely different picture. There are two words in English called delusion and illusion. When a particular thing is existing but perceived as something different, it is a delusion. And illusion is nothing is existing but it is perceived, is illusion. Now, Maya, as described by Acharya, is Maya definitely appears. She doesn't exist. She appears. She appears under certain conditions. And to explain that condition, he has used the famous Siddhanta or famous Drishtanta of Rajju Sarpavada. There are, of course, other Vadas, Shukta, Rajaka, etc. But Rajju Sarpa at this moment is enough for us. The truth is actually the rope. But the rope in the Manda Prakasha appears like a snake. Now, one, it is because of Manda Prakasha. Two, it appears like a snake because snake is not existing. And three, because it appears like snake, there are reactions and responses given by the body. The fear develops, the trembling happens, the sweating happens. So the parinam are there. Whose parinam are these? These are parinam of the fear. From where the fear came? From the snake. From where the snake came? As erroneous representation of a rope. So first thing is perception of rope as snake. This erroneous perception of a rope as snake is nothing else but the not having knowledge of the rope or jnana. So there is a nescience or a jnana, a vidya of the rope leading to the snake, which created the fear. This creation of fear has no substance at all, because the creation of snake itself has no substance. So something, what the snake concept has done is, snake covered the rope. The concept of snake covered the truth, that is the rope. This covering is the avarana shakti of the rope. So ajnana has, first function of ajnana is to conceal the rope or the Brahman. And the second function is, now that the rope is not known, snake is known, there is a fear and subsequent problems associated with it, which are again imagined on imagination, which is called projectile function of misapprehension, which is called vikshepa. So avarana and projection of wrong or erroneous impressions called vikshepa. Those vikshepa effects, parinama, will be suffered by the person. He would actually sweat. So that means he would actually feel all the symptoms of the fear, though the fear is not substantiated. Such an appearance of snake on the rope, which is not existing, which is not created by the rope. Rope is not interested in creating the snake at all. In fact, rope is lying down there without doing anything. Exactly in the similar manner, the Brahma is there, it doesn't do anything, but because of avidya or maya, the indescribable power, anirvachaniya shakti, the world appears. When the world appears, then it gets filled up with the vikshepa of the individual constituents, which suffer because of this erroneous impression, leading to erroneous symptoms. First is Brahma, and then under the influence of Brahma, you start doing a lot of other things. You will run helter-skelter to get the stick to kill the snake, which is not required. So when it came to Maya, a word was created by Acharya, which was called a vivarta. Visheshena vartante iti vivartaha. Vartante, vartamana, vartante, appearance, to be perceived. Visheshena, although there is no substratum, it is perceived. So it is apparent appearance, not a true appearance, not pratyaksham in true sense, but apparent appearance. Now this apparency although the apparency is created, this explains why the world is mithya. Why it is not unreal, asatya? Because we live in it, we suffer in it, we experience it. That means we are able to perceive the world as long as we are in the world. That means under the influence of Maya. So Mayopadhit Vishwa, universe whose upadhi or delimiting factor is Maya, is experienced as real by the people who are in the hypnotized state of the world. Those who go out of this Maya, those who come out of the hypnotic smell of Maya, are the one to whom this appears completely unreal and false. So she is true at once, false at once, true for those who are in it, false for those who are out of it. That is why it is Sat and Asat. Sat for the one who is inside, Asat for the one who has transcended it. At the same time, it cannot be described by only one qualifying word as Sat and Asat. So she is Sat, Asat, anirvachaniya. Acharya again mentioned one important thing, that in spite of the Vivarta, nothing in this Vivarta or the Vishwa possible unless it is infiltrated, substantiated by the Brahman. The consciousness has to pervade in all the creation, although it is not the creation, was the Siddhanta of Acharya. This incidentally led to a new problem. Acharya did not speak anything beyond this. He said Vivartavad, how Maya is there, how she is Anarvichniya, and he stopped at that. He used the example of how consciousness pervades the inert thing, because that is next typical difficult problem. Agreed, there is Maya, there is Brahma, there is Vishwa, which is comprising of Chetan and Achetan, Jiva and Ajiva Srushti. All right, agreed. The question is, the king called Brahma stays up there somewhere. The kingdom called Vishwa stays somewhere there. How the king is related to the kingdom? Because king, you say, is neutral. The Brahma is neutral, yet it pervades everything. So when it is pervading everything, what is precisely the relation? Coming to the specific problem, in every jiva, if there is Atman or Brahman as the substratum, this body, this sharira that appears to me is all false. Only thing true in this or factual in this body is Atman or Brahman. The question is, when two are residing together, Atman is inside the body, in the jiva. How are they related to each other? One. Second, such a vast, Advitiya, huge Brahman, did it become part, and it went into every jiva? Because if you say that, then it is made up of parts. Anything that is made up of parts is false. Because it is a nira avayava, sa avayava, savayava is not true. Anything that can be divided is not true. That's the basic postulate. Again, the next problem came, which was not the problem Shankaracharya had to sort out, because he left by then. It was left to his disciples to sort it out. And what was the problem? How Brahma, how consciousness infiltrates Chara and Achara without disturbing its unity or Ekameva Dvitiya. Then started the speculation like, oh, he is like a sun. See how the light pervades everywhere. So sun's rays pervade everybody and everywhere, yet sun is separate than the rays. Though rays are nothing else but the part of the sun or the nature of the sun, it is not even a part. These issues led to formation of sub-philosophies in the Kevala Dvaita Siddhanta of Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya only mentioned Maya as a Vivartavad, and he said that he used, in fact, analogies of all types. He said it is like Bimba Pratibimba. He says like Ghatakash Matakash. He used it liberally. But his disciples tried to sort out this problem, how ultimate consciousness called Brahma has become part and parcel of each and everything, and what is their exact relation. And that led to formation of the three Vada, famous which of course will be discussed while discussing the sutras and the bhashyas of Shankaracharya. They are called as Avachedavad, Pratibimbavad, and Abhasavad. There are three Vadas. These are Vad explaining relation between Brahma and the Jiva. How consciousness and inert or Jada, Achetan, Jiva, how they are related to each other. The principle is Jivo Brahma Naparaha. That means Jiva and Brahma are same. How they are same and how they are different. If Jiva Brahma Naparaha, then why the Jiva is suffering? Because Brahma is not suffering. Brahma is part and parcel of the Jiva. Brahma never suffers from sorrow, pain, etc., etc. Jiva is subjected to sorrows and unhappiness. A completely unhappy thing blended with bliss and staying together. This is the issue that needs to be sorted out. Padmapadacharya, the Shishya of Shankaracharya, came out with the concept of explaining this relationship through Pratibimba, Bimba Pratibimba Vada. He is also called Vivaranakar or Vivarana Prasthana. We have Prasthana Trayi we saw. Similarly, in this division of consciousness and unconscious things together, Jiva and Brahma relationship, there are three Prasthanas. The first is Vivarana Prasthana, written by or postulated by Padmapadacharya, and it is called Vivarana. Vivarana means to open or to expose or to show. We have studied Kathopanishada, in which in the 6th or 5th Valli, Shankaracharya, while commenting on Kathopanishada shloka, he says Atma Darshanam is like Vivrunate Tanuswam. Like a lady exposing herself to her husband, Atma exposes herself. Vivrunate Tanuhu. That means the Atma Darshan happens. So Vivrunate is exposed. What is this Bimba Pratibimba theory? This Bimba Pratibimba theory tries to explain that the Jiva, in the Jiva, the Brahman is reflected in the medium that is present in the Jiva. So let us say there is a stone, there is a tree, and there is an animal. In all the three, there is a medium to receive the Brahma Prakasha, and that medium may be developed or undeveloped. The medium that receives the rays of Brahman is called Antakarana or Chitta. It is called Chitta because it receives a Chid. Chitta and Chid are different. Chid is consciousness. Chitta is the substratum in which it is received. Chitta is the crystal or the mirror. Chid is the ray. And the Brahman is the sun. So every Jiva, Jada or Achetan, both have the substratum called Chitta or Antakarana. The only substance available in this world, in each and every created being, which is the highest possible receptacle to receive the consciousness, is called Antakarana or Chitta. The bones, the muscles, the skin and the senses and the organs and everything, nothing, no one of them is capable of that. Why? Because if we look at the formation of universe, Prakriti Udbhava, as stated by Sankhya, Buddhi, intellect, Antakaran is from the Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva is because Brahman is Sattva. Satya is closer to Sattva. Brahman doesn't have any guna. But the only guna which goes closest as far as receiving the Brahma Prakash is concerned, it is Sattva guna. There are many things in this world, but only the mirror reflects the sunlight. Why? Mirror has a special property to reflect the sunlight. Similarly, this body, this jiva have ultimate things they are made up of, but the only thing that they have which is capable of reflecting that particular Brahma Prakash is the chitta or the antakaran. The development of this antakarana could be different. That is what precisely the spiritual evolution is. The Darwinian evolution, as Swami Vivekananda said, has nothing to do with the spiritual or the Sankhyan evolution. All that is happening in this world is the evolution of every single jiva towards perfection. And this evolution is happening by developing finer and finer aspects in the antakarana. More purified, more finer, more crystallized the antakarana or the chitta, more is the capacity of the person or the individual or the jiva to reach the Brahman. That is why in this spiritual evolution, the peak and pinnacle as of today is found in human beings. That is why Nara Deha is considered to be a Durlabha thing. Durlabham trayameva etad devanugraha hetukam manushyatvam mumukshatvam mahapurusha saunshrayaha. To get manushyatvam, to be born as a human being, means having the finer apparatus to think about the Brahman and march towards it. But not all would do that, because amongst them who have the capacity and ability because of the developed antakaran, all of them will not try for it, because only few of them will have an urge to go for it, called mumukshatvam, further durlabham. And even if you say that you want to achieve the moksham, you have the desire for it, the mumukshatvam for it, you need a guide. Mahapurusha Saunshrayaha, further difficult. Durlavta has 3 stages as described in Viveki Chodamani by Shankaracharya, by Acharya himself. So Bimba Pratibimba presupposes the reflection of the Brahman in the jiva, which makes it conscious and allows it to act everywhere. If Brahman is reflected in this every jiva, then Brahman is without any sufferings. Why we are suffering? This is explained as the suffering is because of the shakiness of the medium. The Brahman, which is Nishkriya, when it falls like the sun's reflection, when it falls into the water that is constantly shaking or moving, the sun also appears as shaking, or the moon appears as shaking and moving. In that manner, the Brahman, the consciousness that is residing in Jiva, appears to be causing the problems and suffering from the suffering is to the water, not the reflection. So suffering is because of the chitta, which is fluctuating, not steady. If it is steady and not fluctuating, if it is in pristine purity and calmness, it will not suffer, because the pratibimba will be same as bimba. So the Brahman is without suffering, the reflection will be also without suffering, but it is suffering because of the constant movement called agitation, agitation called vritti. Vritti is nothing else but the vichara. And This agitation leads to a feeling, an erroneous feeling that I am moving. That I gets instituted here as ahankar. So there are two aspects to the problem. One is there is a fluctuation that is happening, agitation, and second is it is happening to me. The me and the agitation come into existence simultaneously. Moment the me comes into the picture, the connection between the Brahman or the Surya or the Pratibimba is lost. The person gets deluded. It is called mudhavastha. Mudha. Delusion, something is there, something else is perceived. Brahman is there as a part and parcel in the jiva, but it is perceived as me, delusion, mudhavastha. This is bimba pratibimba-vad. The objection to the Brahma pratibimba-vad is also there, bimba pratibimba-vad. And what is the objection? The objection is that Brahman has no sense, no criteria, no character, nothing. Something that doesn't have anything like character or property or anything, how it can be reflected? For some substantive material. It is not a substantive material. It has no criteria, no parts, nothing. How nothing can be reflected then? One objection on bimba pratibimba-vada. We are not going to go into further details of that because that is not the subject. Another explanation given for this relationship between Brahma and the Jiva is called avachedavad. Now the word avachedavad, although sounds pretty gibberish, the explanation is very simple. We all know that the space is everywhere. If the space is everywhere, and suppose I take a pot in my hand, the kumbh or the pot in my hand, the pot will also have the same space because space outside can enter into the pot also. It is outside the pot also. But as far as the space inside the pot is concerned, it can be called as space of the pot. Ghata, a pot, a ghata, can have akasha, space into it, then it will be called as ghatakasha, space limited by. The word important here is delimitation. That is called avacheda. Space is everywhere. Right now, the space inside the pot also is the same space. But because it got delimited by the pot, it is called ghat akasha, ghatakash. When that particular jiva disintegrates, when the pot disintegrates, where does the space go? It will be same with the space outside. So there is no going and coming for the space. It is the jiva which apparently engulfs the consciousness, and then we call it a jiva chaitanya. Chaitanya is everywhere. Jiva catches part of it inside it, and it becomes jiva chaitanya. So this is called Ghatakash and Mahakash. It is all Mahakash. Appears as Ghatakash. So this jiva, multiple jivas, multiple Chetan, Achetan, whatever, they all have got inside them same Brahma, but appears to be functioning restrictively in that particular body. So it is called as a Jiva Chaitanya. That is called as Brahma Chaitanya. If you take away Jiva and Brahma together from these two words, only Chaitanya remains. All one needs to do is remove the delimiting factor, which is called upadhi. So upadhi rahita chaitanya is same as the consciousness. So if you remove jiva as upadhi, Ishwar as upadhi, what remains? Only chaitanya or the Brahma. And for that matter, if jiva can conceal a very small amount of chaitanyam to be called jiva chaitanya, Ishvara is also same like jiva. Only thing is his capacity to restrict the chaitanyam is very large. So Ishvara is an upadhi. Now what is the upadhi for the jiva? Sharir is an upadhi. Sharir is the delimiting factor. My own chaitanya does not extend beyond my skin. Why? For this sharira, this is chaitanya. Then next to the skin, there is another body. It could be Vayu, Akash, it could be a stone or a tree or whatever. A tree has its own chaitanya. What is happening is tree is an upadhi, covering up. The book is same, the covers are changing. So similarly, if my sharira is my delimiting factor for my chaitanya, for the whole universe, the delimiting factor is shariram of the Ishvara. The shariram of the Ishvara, whether it is sthula called Virata, sukshma called Hiranyagarbha, or the innermost called Ishvara, all these are nothing else but the delimiting factor called Maya. So Maya is the delimiting factor for the Ishvara. That is why the definition of Ishvara is Mayopadhita Chaitanya. Maya Upadhita Chaitanya. The consciousness that is delimited by the body or the extent called Maya is called Ishvara. So if Maya conceals or covers Ishvara and creates Ishvara, covers the Chaitanya and creates Ishvara, for me, it is the avidya that covers. So avidya and Maya are essentially same except the kshetra. The kshetra of avidya is for the sharira or the individual jiva. The kshetra of Maya is for the whole creation. Maya covers the Ishvara Brahman and creates Ishvara. Mayopadhita Chaitanya is Ishvara. And for the jiva, avidya upadhita jiva. So if the jiva conquers the upadhi called avidya, it is same as good as Ishvara conquering Maya. That is why if Ishvara itself is nothing else but an entity created by Maya, Maya itself is anirvachaniya sat asat, but asat at a transcendental state, then Ishvara is also transcendentally asat. That is why Shankaracharya says, for the base camp exercise, you need Ishvara, but for scaling the Mount Everest, theology is of no consequence whatsoever. So this is called avachedavad. There is, of course, objection to that also. And the objection is, such a huge Brahman, consciousness pervading everywhere, Ekameva Dvitiya, and it is Shukram, Shuddham, Asnavaram, all the descriptions are given. For such a great thing, how a false thing called a Maya can cover? It is like saying that there is a king almighty and all powerful, but there is one slave who is not letting us know who the king is. How it is possible for a small slave to cover up the king? Objection. Purvapaksh. So this is the objection on the Avachedavada. And third vada that is there for this relationship of Brahma and Jiva is called Abhasavada. This is given by Sureshwaracharya. Now mind well, there is commonly it is said that Mandan Mishra and Sureshwaracharya are the same, but there are a lot of controversies about it. In fact, there is a scripture written by Sureshwaracharya in which he has actually done Khandan of Mandan Mishra. So how two people, if they are same, can do Khandan of each other? But that is not the subject of discussion. Abhasavada is the Vada provided by Sureshwaracharya. It is called Vartika Prasthana. He came out with a third thing. He said, why fight about Jiva and Brahma, how they are related, why this, that, etc. Acharya has already said one thing to us. What has he said? He said, this is nothing else but Jiva and Ishvara and the world is nothing else but inexplicable, anirvachaniya appearance of Brahma. Isn't it? Shankaracharya had said that this world, this Jiva, this, whatever is there other than the Brahma is nothing else but anirvachaniya, inexplicable extension of Brahma. So that means what is appearing is abhasa. I felt that there is a ghost on the tree because the tree stump, the post and the ghost, the tree stump looked like a ghost. Now it is already known to me that this is nothing else but it looks like a ghost. Why analyze it? There was a white color liquid. I thought it is milk, but it was not. It was a paint. Once you come to know that it is not milk, then why you want to really go into the dissection of how this milk was perceived, why this is, etc. He just take this as an abhas and forget it. That is what Acharya is trying to say. This is what Sureshwaracharya says in Tarkika Prasthan. Avachedavad is by Vachaspati Mishra Maharaj through Bhamati Prasthan. Bimba Pratibimbavad is by Padmapadacharya through Vivarana Prasthan. And Abhasavad is by Sureshwaracharya through Tarkika Prasthan. All the three are taking forward the legacy of the great master Shankaracharya. Where he left the thread, they went for the threadbare discussion on the relationship between Brahman and the Jiva. With this discussion, we complete in short the coverage of Kevala Dvaita, which we are always the followers, being the followers of the Sampradaya of the Shankaracharya, being in the Sampradaya of Chinmayananda Saraswati Maharaj, Saraswati being the Maharaj, being that Saraswati tradition being of Shankaracharya, we accept as a Shabda Pramanya of Kevala Advaita. But now the Acharyas, since they are going to write Bhashyam, or we are going to study the Bhashyam on Brahma Sutra, he, first of all, we should know what is his stand as far as this Brahman, Jiva, Jagat, everything and truth and everything is concerned. That is why we studied Kevala Advaita. We tried to see the differences between them and the Darshanas. We have not studied Buddhism and Jainism, the Nastik Darshanas, as well as Charvak, because they are going to be coming in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya itself at different stages when we will be studying them to know the differences. Now what remains is Advaita and its enemies as Charvaka, Jaina, Brahma, the Buddhism, etc. is going to be studied in Brahma Sutra Bhashya. But within the house of Shankaracharya, within the house of Uttar Mimamsa, other Acharyas are gunning at him for his interpretation of Kevala Advaita. That is why the subject discussion will not be complete unless we study Kevala Advaita vis-a-vis other Advaitas. So Kevala Advaita vis-a-vis Vishishta Advaita, Shuddha Advaita, Dvaita Advaita, and Achintya Bheda Bhed. If we study this, then we will be competent, at least at a bare minimum level, to undertake the study of Brahma Sutra starting from Adhyasa Bhasya. So Kevala Advaita, in short, we try to see. We shall see these other Advaiti Siddhantas, sub-schools of the Uttara Mimamsa in the next session, and then we will be geared up to start with the Adhyasa Bhashyam, the first part of the Brahma Sutra Bhashyam. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnam Nidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji. We'll just wait to see if there are any clarifications.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji. This Bimba Pradibimbavada, it is something like the sun is there and you are spreading thousands of water pots on the ground. In every water spot, the sun will be reflected. So that is Jiva. If you take a pot of the water somewhere, it will shake and it will there will be issues. Then that is the problem of the body or mind, isn't it?
Yes.
And we have another. If you give the lake alone, that is not clear actually. If somewhere else I have read that this is the way it should be explained, that that Acharya says that it is, you take a bucket, many buckets of water and keep it on the floor or on the ground, the sun will reflect on that. So that is very convincing. Okay, now Sogata, there is some more Vedas like Sogata Veda, Sajadiya Veda, Vijadiya Veda. That comes under Avachedavada, isn't it? Sogata Veda is like a tree. In tree itself, there are branches, leaves, and roots, etc. So that also has Acharya has ruled out that also in Brahma that cannot be happen. That cannot be so, because Brahma is one alone. So there cannot be a Swagata Veda, and Sajadiya Veda means two trees. No. Two trees are not agreeable. Only one tree. Egam, evam, advidiyam. That is confirmed with that analogy. And Vijatiya Veda was described as take a rock and a tree. It is two different jadis. So that also has been ruled out. This way it was explained. That comes under which Vada? Avachedavada, no?
There are two things to this. One is, when I took the example of a lake, it was a Vyashti and Samashti difference. Vyashti centric being given right now. It is understood when we take one jiva, then it is happening in other jivas in the similar manner. So Bimba Pratibimba Vada, while explaining, even if we take into the Vivarana Prasthana also, when Acharya starts with it, it says that what is being now explained for the Vyashti is applicable to the Samashti. So the medium of reflection varies in each individual. That is why there is a pluralistic approach in the material world. So when the lake was explained, it was explained for the sake of individual chitta, what happens in that when bimba pratibimba comes, how it gets related, and the same is then true with all other jivas. As far as these Vedas are concerned, we explained that in the last session, all Vedas. The question now is Swagata, Sajatiya and Vijatiya Bheda, these three types of Vedas. What is its relation with the Brahma is going to come when we will see other Vedanta sub-schools, because they are the ones who believe in these Vedas. So when we will be seeing Vishishtadvaita or Shuddhadvaita, we will automatically be seeing how they differ as far as these Vedas are concerned. As far as Kevaladvaita is concerned, there is no Bhed whatsoever. Because Swagata, Sajatiya, Vijatiya, Bheda means difference. There cannot be difference in a homogeneous thing. A difference indicates Savayavata. So difference is absolutely absent. Conspicuous by absence is the purport theory of Kevaladvaita, which is not the case with the other Advaiti schools, who believe that there is Swagata Bhed in Brahma. For example, Ramanujacharya believes that there is a Swagata Bheda. So what is a Jiva? Jiva is also Brahman. What is a Achetan? That is also Brahman. Then if that is Brahman, that is Brahman. What is the difference? There is no difference. That is one body. That is called Swagata Bhed. Acharya Shankaracharya is not interested in taking any Vedas whatsoever. So that is why these three Vedas are also going to come when we'll be studying the other darshanas. Hari Om.
Okay, thank you, Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji, this Avachedavada, you said, who is the Acharya?
Avachedavada is Vachaspati Mishra Maharaj, who was also called as Sarva Tantra Swatantra, because he is unique personalities in the history who had studied whatever is available under the sun was studied by him. He has written, if you remember, our entire Patanjali Yoga Sutra was based on the Bhashyam of the same Vachaspati Mishra Maharaj. So the Avachedavada is given by Vachaspati Mishra Maharaj, and the Pratibimba is given by Padma Padacharya Maharaj, then subsequently developed by their Shishyas further. Hari.
Okay, what is it? What is his? Is he contemporary to Padma Padacharya, or?
Pati Mishra is one generation ahead of these people. Shankaracharya, Padma Padacharya, Suresh, and the Padma Padacharya, they are contemporaries. While Vachaspati Mishra Maharaj is one generation later. That is why the Vachaspati Mishra Maharaj also tried to take the other Shishyas, other immediate Shishyas of Shankaracharya, their opinions into the picture while writing the Bhamati. That is why Bhamati has so much relevance and importance in Advaita Shastra, is because of his ability. He was intelligence par excellence. He had read so much that, and not only Advaita, all Shad Darshanas he was master, and he had written on them. So he was able to give a more balanced view. That is why Bhamati as a Grantha is considered to be one of the gemstones in the Advaita Siddhantas. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
By the way, the name Bhamati came simply because he was married under force, in the sense that he was constantly busy in studies. So when he was writing Bhamati, he was writing actually on Brahma Sutra of the Bhasya of Shankaracharya. So when he was writing, he kept on writing day and night, and he forgot that he was married. After few months, when he completed the Grantha, he looked upwards and he saw one lady standing. He asked, "Who you are?" And she said, I am the one who is every day cleaning your lamp and putting the lamp there so that you could work in the night. And I am the one who is giving you food. Then he said, how come you are here? And she said, I'm married to you. Then he realized that he was married, and the name of his wife was Bhamati. That is why the Grantha was given the name Bhamati, for the dedication that she had. Hari Om.